All right, let's get right into it. You've probably been there, right? Stuck behind some driver doing something completely baffling, and you just think to yourself, what is going on in their head? It's a super common feeling, and it makes you wonder, is there some kind of link between how smart someone is and how well they drive? Well, the answer is probably not what you're expecting. So let's just lay the question out on the table. Is a person's accident rate actually connected to their IQ? I mean, it seems like it should be, right? You'd think smarter people would make smarter choices behind the wheel. But does the data back that up? And the answer, believe it or not, is a big, flat no. There's just no solid evidence linking a higher IQ to safer driving. In fact, and get this, some research even hints at the opposite. Turns out people with higher IQs can sometimes be a bit too confident, maybe a little more willing to take risks, and that can actually push their accident rate up. So, what does that tell us? It tells us we've been asking the completely wrong question all along. Okay, so if it's not about being smart, then what is it about? To figure that out, we need to forget about IQ scores and start digging into the cold, hard stats. Let's take a look at the profiles of the drivers who are, statistically, the highest risk out there, based on traffic data from all over the globe. And this is really the most important thing to wrap your head around. Accident risk has nothing to do with intelligence. It's all about statistics. Think of it like a game of odds, where your age, your habits, and even when you're driving all play a huge role. And what's wild is that these patterns are the same pretty much everywhere: the US, Europe, Asia, you name it. So if we're looking at the numbers, who's the single most at-risk group on the road? Well, it's this age range, 16 to 25. I mean, their accident rate and sadly their fatal accident rate is just way higher than any other group. The big question is why? The science here is actually super interesting. You see, the part of our brain that's in charge of things like impulse control, it's called the prefrontal cortex, well, it's just not fully wired up yet in this age group. So you take that, you add in a classic case of overestimating your own driving skills, a love for a little extra speed, and then you throw in the peer effect, when having friends in the car suddenly makes taking risks seem like a great idea. And yeah, it's a perfect storm. And if we drill down even further inside that high-risk group, it's young men who are especially at risk. Check this out. An 18 or 19-year-old guy behind the wheel is somewhere between 2 and 4 times more likely to crash than a middle-aged driver. I mean, that is just a huge, huge difference. Now, let's be super clear about something. This has nothing to do with driving skill. It's all about patterns of behavior. When you look at the statistics, male drivers just tend to have a higher appetite for risk. They speed more, they have higher rates of drunk driving, and they drive more at night. All of those things are major, major risk factors. All right, so we figured out who is most at risk, but that's really only half the story. The other huge piece of this puzzle is when people are driving. The time of day and even the day of the week can make an enormous difference. The data paints a really clear picture here. There's this danger window, let's call it. It starts to creak open around 10 p.m., it hits its absolute peak after midnight, and it doesn't really start to close up until about 4 in the morning. And no surprise here, Friday and Saturday nights are when things get the most dangerous. So what makes these hours so risky? Well, it's not just one thing. It's a whole bunch of factors all colliding at once. You've got alcohol, you've got tired drivers, you've got low visibility because it's dark, and on top of that, people's emotions might be running high after a night out. Any one of those is bad. But when you mix them all together, that's a truly dangerous cocktail. Okay, so we've covered the who and the when. Now let's get to the real meat of it. We're talking about the actual road killers, the specific actions and behaviors that really, truly matter way more than something like IQ.
This right here, this is what it all comes down to. This is the perfect storm for an accident, the highest risk situation you can find in traffic data anywhere in the world. So here's the recipe. You start with a young male driver, then you have him drive at night. Step 3, you put some of his friends in the car. And the final ingredient, speeding. That combination is a tragically reliable way to cause a crash.
So let's just lay it all out and see how the risk levels stack up. At the very top, in the red zone, you have those 18 to 25-year-old male drivers. Just below them are teen novice drivers in general. Then you have these big behavioral risks, like driving drunk or distracted, which put anyone in the medium risk category. And down at the bottom, the safest group on the road, stable, middle-aged drivers. All right, so we've pretty much busted the myth that driving safety is about being smart, but there is a brain function that matters. So if it's not IQ, what should we be looking at? Let's talk about the part of our thinking that actually controls what we do behind the wheel.
And that key concept is something called executive function. The best way to think about it is like the CEO of your brain. It's not about raw intelligence, like solving a math problem. It's about managing everything else: your self-control, where you put your attention, and how you assess risks. That is what makes for a safe driver.
So here's the bottom line. On one hand, you have IQ, which is basically raw brain power. But on the other hand, you have executive function, which is all about practical skills like self-control and focus. One is not really connected to how safe you are on the road. The other is directly linked to it. We've just been hung up on the wrong metric this whole time.
Okay, so we've taken apart the whole IQ myth, and we've followed the data to see what really causes driving risk. So now, let's pull it all together into a clear, simple guide for safe driving. This is the stuff that really matters.
Seriously, if you remember just one thing from all of this, let it be this. Your risk of getting in a car accident has nothing to do with how smart you are. It has everything to do with your behavior and your environment.
So when you see a driver who seems to have one close call after another, it's almost certainly not because they lack intelligence. It's way more likely to be one of these things: just plain bad habits, being impulsive, a love of risk-taking, not paying attention, or constantly driving when they're tired. And the good news? All of those are behaviors, and behaviors can be changed.
And that really brings us to our final takeaway. It's not about how fast your brain works. It's about how well you control your actions. Safe driving isn't an IQ test. It's a test of self-management. So I want to leave you with a question to think about for yourself. What's one driving habit you have that you could maybe change starting today?